for the uh, uh, next 3 weekends is what we are going to learn Jenkins entirely. And I'll talk about quickly, talk about the Jenkins program, what will be covered and all that stuff. We'll talk about CI/CD introduction. We will also cover with a Netflix story, how organizations like Netflix or PayPal, the bigger organization, really do it in today's world. I'll also give you a certification overview if someone is really interested to get certified. Maybe good time to get some discounts. So I'll also tell you how we will share your certification dump or maybe possible questions and answers, how you can clear your exam, and that hint also I'll give you. Though you all installed, I'll give you a very quick overview about the installation from a different perspective, how it is developed, what is happening when you're starting at Jenkins, what's happening internally. So I'll give an insight. So you can just watch me while installing and ask me any questions that you might have. And I'll quickly go through the Jenkins architecture, all right, as what components are available, how it is built in Java, right? I'll also run you the UI walkthrough, how the UI looks like, right? And then we will start with a very simple job, right? Uh, very simple job, with a freestyle running from local. And you guys can practice a bit, and then we'll start with a freestyle with a JIT. I'm sure every one of you here understood JIT from basics, both command line as well as from the JIT from the repo. So we'll hook from the repo, we'll pull from the JIT repo automatically using a plugins. So let's do it. That's when the first plugin really starts. I'll also give you a background about the plugins first before we hit the JIT one. Maybe that would be a good one to look at. And then we'll start looking at the few triggers today and practice them. That's what we will do. And that's how your 4 hours is going to look like. Okay. So I'm going to go in a very slow pace day one. So I'm going to keep it really gentle and make sure you get it. And also we will talk about the possible interview questions that might have part of the Jenkins. And before I go, I also wanted to make sure if you are using WebEx for the first time or getting better, if you double click at the center of my presentation, what will happen? It will take you all and then put you across. Did you all try and confirm to me, double click, and you will see me the full screen that I share, right? Confirm with an emotion icon, with a thumbs up icon as soon as you do it. And then you can minimize, right? Everybody, you have an option to minimize everybody. So you have very clean screen available for you to hear and learn. Brilliant. Thank you for confirmation. So this is the plan for today. And if you don't know me, if you're seeing me for the first time, I'm the founder, CEO for TestLeaf, and also we opened up the second organization, Q Eagle. We're a 50-member team right now, grown to 67, and we have got new recruits joining on Monday, so we're growing. We are working on several projects across the globe. I also speak in conferences. I also coach, mentor people for good. And in addition to that, I'm also supporting multiple NGOs around the world. So that's what I do. And for living, I obviously code for living. And so I have worked on Jenkins. I got certified on Jenkins long ago. I've been doing a lot of pipeline projects for myself. We are setting up a lot of things. So happy to share all my experience throughout today. And if I don't know something, I'll be very open to tell you I don't know, but I'll find you the answer. They're all super good. All right. I am happy and glad to be here running you the next 3 weekends. So stay with me, enjoy presence. Right. Okay. All right. So let's go to my Jenkins presentation. And okay. So let's get started. So you have to learn two different keywords when we talk about Jenkins or as such. One is called CI and the other one is called CD. Okay, CI and C. So CI stands for continuous integration, correct? I think everybody understands that component. So let me give a background about the story. Probably 2 decades back when I started my first software engineering coding, right? Back at my first project in Sintel, and we were working in a cold fusion language. That is a CFML. It's a markup language. So when I started working those days, we don't have something called version controlling system at all. We write the code and somebody collects all the code in the common network server. Somebody manage all, combine all the code, and possibly create a build and copy it and put it onto a test environment or into a different server where the testing team tests it and confirm it. If all good, then they deploy it in the same testing machine. The customer test it and confirm everything is good before we move it to the production. All this work used to be very, very manual, absolutely manual. And if there is a US team working, India team working, these codes are all copied to a common server. Somebody copy it, download it, and do it. And in those days, we don't have challenge, and we thought that's a way to work, right? When things become very, very faster, I think I do remember when I worked for the first customer out of I think it was based out of somewhere in Europe, right? And the customer was in Automax. Automax is a customer which is for probably we are talking about 20 years ago who want to sell, buy cars, old cars. That's a platform we built for the customer. And when we wrote that particular first code, that we used to deliver any functionality customer wanted, we delivered them in the next 3 months, nothing before that. Okay, so do you all think in today's world, and especially in the fastest DevOps world, do you think going to production can take only 3 months? Is it applicable? Do you all think it is nice, good? Type and answer yes or no. Yeah. So you wait for 2 months to give an right 3 months to give a bill to developer and say, hey, get it. Nobody's going to like it. And interestingly, I got colleagues who are working in some of the best product companies in Chennai, and one of the companies, Ali. Ali is a company, according to them, they go to production every single day, right? So we are going to production every single day. So do you think that's a world we are all going to be living? Yes, they're going to production almost every single day. Is that what the market is moving us upfront? So which means we don't have a time for us really to do everything in a slow pace. We should be pretty much sitting on the hot oven every single day. Code it, push it, test it, get it done, right? So with that said, that is where the model of continuous integration becomes really in need today, right? Especially when you have multiple developers working, multiple testers working, and especially if you're working out of multiple cities, multiple countries, that too with work from home due to COVID and a lot of remote working in place, this become naturally needed. So what is continuous integration? Whatever code you're writing on your local machine and which need to be go and not only pushing to a GitHub or a Bitbucket, but that need to be automatically monitored. Look at the code change that you are doing. Hey, Babu is doing this code change. So his code change need to become a build and that become a jar file or a war file in Java, or it could be something like a exe file in C sharp. So you get a build. That build need to be also deployed to the next environment. So the forward environment that you have into place, we should go and deploy it, right? That is what the industry is looking at you. So as soon as you write a code and push a code, the code becomes a build becomes a deployment need to get tested. So that all has to happen one, not necessarily based on your manual push, everything an automated way of doing it. So that is fundamentally it is what the market is trying to look at it. So that is called continuous integration. So let me repeat, continuous integration is whatever code in terms of it could be a tester code or a developer code, whatever code you are trying to push, the code becomes combined to a GitHub or a Bitbucket or whatever code repo you have. Then version controlling systems like they use webhooks, which notify the build server like Jenkins and which pull the code, which make a build out of it using your Maven or it could be based on a Gradle, whatever build server you use, it makes a build and then deploy it into a particular environment that you're looking for as a stage gate, right? So this is what called as continuous integration. So do you all understand this? Yes. If it is yes, good or good, give me an answer. If you have questions, you type down the question for me. Okay, brilliant. Right. Okay, the second one. Why do we really need continuous integration? So I think one of the fundamental reason is I don't think we have enough time to test, and also you need to have a faster feedback. Yesterday in the APM conference, I was the first line of speakers. So I was giving a entire demo along with one of my friend, and we are doing a demo how to scale up, right, using Kubernetes, the APM nodes in any cloud environment using a Terraform and the entire cloud solutions. So we're trying to do that, and especially why we have to go for scaling up, scaling down deployments, because we are forced to test very, very rapidly. And one of our customers says, you have to complete all your base testing within 60 minutes, right? You don't have, if you give any defects on the build after 60 minutes, we don't consider them, right? So we have penalty clauses because you need to have a faster feedback. So if you need a faster feedback, you cannot expect people to do it manually. Is it all you guys agree? Yes, you agree? Absolutely correct. So if you are planning to do it manually, you cannot do it faster because we cannot be the best every single day, and you cannot be available 24/7. Correct. So we need to see an automated way to do it. And one of the way of automating your code pushes to do it, because we need an yearly defect identification process, then we need to better automate it. So I'll also give an insight here based on my experience. 3 days back, I was talking to one of my ex-Amazon guy who is based out of Seattle. And he told me, Babu, if you look back when you're living here, right, a decade back, and we used to have a tester maybe to somewhere about 15 years back. Most of the companies used to have 1:1 in Microsoft, in PayPal, in Amazon, Netflix. These guys used to, may not be Netflix those days. So most of these product form companies, they used to have like 1:1, one developer to one tester. Even when I started my performance engineering roadmap probably 15 years ago, we had a 1:1. A developer is mapped to one tester. That's how the ratio was. Now, if you look at decade back, somewhere in 2013, 14, 15 time frame, and the system went to 10 developers to one tester. That's what the model of most of the product companies started looking at it. How many of you seeing such system? 10 developers will have only one tester, closely to that number. In your projects, how many of you already have 10 developers have one tester kind of model, right? So that is where most of the product companies trying to do this effectively, right? And in Google, in during the COVID days, they changed the entire processes to have closely about 100 developers with one tester. Now, technically, for 100 developers, one tester, impractical. That's what you can look at. But they say, why do you need a tester? If you had a right developer, you don't need a tester. Does all the testers agree? At least partially to a reasonable level. If the developers are really good, our job is in stake. Would you all agree? Yes. So thanks to all the great developers for keeping a buggy product, keeping our life going. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Right. Right. So that's a right. And to all the developer folks right here, it is also the problem with the quality of the developers who are not doing their testing, their ownership, their responsibility right. That is why the leaks of defects are going traveling towards. But the product companies call it out and say, hey, let's not do it. So let's make sure we are not building that kind of ecosystem. They want to have developers are responsible, won't. That's what my best friend spoke to me and said that's where the ecosystems are happening. So maybe in the future you may not see a lot of testers in the system manually doing it, but fundamentally already we are seeing that trend happening in most of the product companies. Service company also will follow that, and which means you better develop it, you test it by an automated way of doing it and integrate it to that entire system. So that's a pipeline of things that should happen. So at least I think high paid organization for developers is expecting them to do it. Okay. So with that said, yearly feedback can happen if that happened really well. So which means you can find a defect really, really fast. So that's the fundamental thought process of continuous integration. So probably, as I told you, those days probably going back 15, 20 years back, no build servers, developer commit on a regular basis, changes are integrated, tested manually. You don't have a lot of releases, very few releases. That's what it happened then, right? Then probably I think some of you are already in this state. If you're not in this state, it is very, very unfortunate. I'm sure I crossed the stage of every nightly build you get, at least one build a day, at least you get probably 10 years ago. That's what I had in my previous organizations and projects that I worked. At least you get one build every night or every day morning. How many of you get at least one build to your test environment right now? At least one build a day? Type me so that I know that. So what does it mean? The developers are going to build this code and automatically it comes and deploys into a test environment, at least one build a day. So this is called generally nightly build, right? And that's what exactly the systems are doing. So it is an automated builds and scheduled basis, which goes whatever developers code pushed until 9 o'clock, every code is compiled, built, and then pushed to your testing machines or to your right upward environments, right? So that's exactly what's happening. So I'm sure most of you should be having at least this, right? So this becomes more manual those days. Now it becomes more automated. Now what's happening is slowly you get multiple bills in a day, right? Multiple bills in a day. I think how many of you get at least more than one bill a day? Type the number of bills you all get in a testing environment or the dollar. If you're a developer, tell me how many bills at least you make in a single day. Type down. Each one of you type down. It's okay to type down if you are yeah, okay to type down. Okay, a lot of people. If somebody is still getting like uh, one build every week, I think you are blessed. Absolutely, you are blessed. Correct. That's the truth. If you're getting very less number of build, you are blessed to be on the right jolly project. Right. I think for many of us this is pain because you get every build, you don't know when build is coming, when it is getting. I was talking to one of my customers. I think he made it very good fun about it. Right, Babu, the developers do not notify us or they don't configure in Jenkins uh, when the build is going to come. Right. So what we do, we go to a washroom and come back. There is a build already. So the testers avoid going to a washroom right now. So that is a fun he's trying to make out of it. Right. So how many of you see like the development or DevOps team don't notify you when there is a build? How many of you feeling that state? Anybody here? Anybody here? You don't get notified or you don't get informed, communicated on a build. So let me reverse the question and ask, right? Yeah, somebody said only by looking at the repo I'm aware that there's a build. Okay. Anybody else who don't get notified when there is a build? Okay, there are a few of you. Okay. Okay. Now we will also learn how to let Jenkins to communicate to any group that you want it to be, right? Is that the email communication, the SMS communication can happen whenever you have a build. It's basically, yeah, it's traditional approach people do still uses those days, right? So we'll talk about all that as we progress, but this is all the way the entire system progressed over the time. Now, pretty much, if you look at the way how Netflix works, you will be amazed with the way they are working. And most of the time, the Netflix and Facebook deployment process are amazing, absolutely amazing, and which you think it's a no-touch deployment. So there is nobody human in between. From the word developer push the code, it goes to the production. Everything no touch and no approvals. Everything is automated. It happens, right? So I'll talk about this also. It's completely an automated deployment in progress. Okay. This is our current product deployment. We have a weekly product that is going to AWS today, and we have a product that we are building for the upcoming ecosystem. The currently what we are trying to do is whatever code we are trying to push from the dev, we are writing the backend code in Node.js. The front end code is written in Flutter, and we have a code push to the JIT private environment. So the JIT commit is pushed by the dev, and they have their own unit test which runs with their front end and back end integration. So they go and do it. Currently, we have only three environments. One is a dev, QA, and non or staging production environment, not a true production because we have not gone a live. So what you see here, prod is more of a pre-prod environment at this moment. We are not given a prod. We are going the MVP on November end, December second week. I think that's what we are aiming. Currently, we have got every day code push minimum, right? One code push from every developer, minimum, bare minimum. That's what we are looking at it. And when they push the code and it runs its own test, right? Both in terms of unit test and then also QA there is a small QA team. So we got about 11 developers with 1.5 testers kind of QA team, and we are operating very lean on that. So the QA team also have to do an approval to confirm that there is no breakage on the code base, and that's what we are doing. For Flutter, it is a front-end automation with a Flutter with RPM, and the backend is completely written on the REST implementation. So that's what we do most of our automation around it. And then once you hit this, then it goes to with both, this is the stage gate approval, both has to certify. There is a yes button will come in the Jenkins pipeline. Somebody has to go and hit yes. So both have to approve, two-stage approval. Both dev has to approve and the QA also have to approve. Both have to approve, then it goes to the stage environment. Once it goes to the stage environment, it also runs a bit of end-to-end test. Here is where the Selenium test. The Selenium WebDriver test, we have got closely about 25-30 flows, so which runs in the integrated test right now. So PM approval has to happen. This is Velu who does the approval. Then we have a QA approval, one of the QA lead, which is basically 1.5 resource. So the off resource is the QA lead. The ops approval is from the AWS team. They give an approval ensuring, because the cloud is on the AWS. Currently, it is in approval, 3 approval systems. Once it does, it goes back to the Jira story, which has been published for that particular whatever ticket we have. Then it's wait for the Tuesday and goes to the pre-prod staging environment, which is sitting on the pre-prod for any demos or any walkthroughs with the business teams. That's what we do it for the projects. This is how our weekly production cycle really looks like. Okay, so you guys understand how the system, this is predominantly the stage gates are not automated. These are all manually, somebody have to hit the button. Otherwise, rest of the systems are going to be automated, completely automated. Okay, sounds like many of you have similar processes in place, right? Sorry on getting how your regular processes of production goes in. Yeah, did you guys get a opportunity? Yes. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so now look at the testers. If you're a tester, your job role is going to be like running your automated test automatically and then doing a QA approval, and probably you have another approval, the stage gate, 2 stage gates. Those are all the things that you have to do. Actually, in some organizations, they do it a little differently. They do a Jira stage gate. So we'll talk about it also as we progress. This is an interesting learning, and this is a huge slide that you have to take it. This is how Netflix currently building a code, right? So they have something very interesting called Canary pipeline. Okay, so I'll take this story and walk you through without, so you can look at my face basically. So okay, brilliant. So you guys are good. Can see me? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so that is something you can write down also something. There is something called Canary pipeline, right? This is a very interesting learning process for most of you. What is a Canary pipeline? Canary pipeline is basically, you would have heard this canary in terms of vein. If you're in a heart pumping, there is a canary vein. Have you heard it? Something if you probably picked biology in the 12th, 11th, 12th, you would have somewhere read it. Last year, which is totally understandable. But I think, yeah, somewhere about it. So we are talking about Canary pipeline, Canary deployment. So now, what is Canary pipeline talking about? The deployment talking about is very interesting, right? For example, Netflix has something very interesting. For example, or Amazon does it all the time, or most of the product companies really uses it. Now, for example, they wanted to go to production very quick, very, very fast. For example, assume that Netflix is coming with a new release, right? For example, assume that there is a new feature they wanted to show you in a kids channel or somewhere in your Netflix, uh, right? By the way, how many of you watch Netflix? Right? How many of you watch Netflix? Brilliant. Okay, if you're watching Netflix, can you type down what is the favorite Netflix? Type quick. I'm going to take a moment to grab it. Not just the movies. I think there is a lot more to look at it. Okay. There are a lot of interesting series. A lot of people do it. A lot of web series, which is very interesting. If you are watching a web series, you should be less than 30, and I think that's a way to connect with most of you, right? If these guys are more than 40, they don't watch Netflix. That's the best way to know that you guys what you guys do it. That's a very common thing, right? If you are watching web series, then you should be less than 30, right? And 30 to 40 kind of movies, above 40, no Netflix at all, right? It's kind of thing, right? Brilliant. So, right. All right. Many of my young friends who are in colleges, they do watch all these kind of interesting. Money heist is one of the very common thing people do. Okay. Now let's talk about how Netflix technologies work, right? And these guys wanted to do a, let's say, a new future adding to their Netflix. Right? So this is a very small code change they wanted to implement it. But the problem here is Netflix has been used across the globe, and especially in US, they are the biggest one to have. And they don't want to really, whenever they make a code change, currently what they do is it is completely non-human touch. For example, most of them, it is not true across Netflix they do it, but most of the Netflix code changes, assume I'm the developer for Netflix. I'm making a code change, let's say changing some gRPC code change, right? Yeah, no screen is shared yet. Okay, I'm just talking right now. So assume that we are taking about, let's say, a Netflix, making sure let me pull it. Maybe you don't like me, right? Seeing me, maybe I'll bring it up. Okay. So assume that what happens right now is uh, you're trying to make a code change, code push. Let me say I'm doing some gRPC code change and pushed it. As soon as I push my continuous code change, which goes to a continuous integration, which they use actually Jenkins, they have a Nebula inside, they have a different tools, they have it, but they wrote something their own CI/CD pipeline as well on top of Jenkins, which is Spinnaker. Spinnaker is basically what they are self-driven. It is also open source, and what it does is it bake the code, they deploy it, they run the test with this. Basically, these are all automated tests completely. And what they do is they put a hot fix, but they don't make it available for every single user, right? So based on some AI algorithm, they make it available to only to a specific set of users. So which is less than 5% of the users in their system get that first release. If 5% of the users uses it, and they are basically most of them are super fans of Netflix, even if they got a defect, they don't really cry loud. They are okay about it. So it is like a beta users, what they use it, right? For example, WhatsApp released uh, 2 days back the beta one. Have you noted that? So WhatsApp released something which means you can have a future with multiple devices connected. You can use before that if you're using web WhatsApp, you can be connected to only one device, correct? Now, if you're using web WhatsApp, you can have multiple devices connected with the same one. They have released it, but you get a beta, right? Beta is basically a feature that can be larger subscribers, but Canary pipeline is for a smaller pipeline, which is more like a super fan or people who are very well wishers of Netflix. They get it. So they use a Canary pipeline. They test it. If something goes wrong, people keep looking at the logs, errors, that exceptions being thrown at them. They look at it. But if things are going really wrong, they revert them. They don't really make it live. So it goes to a Canary pipeline to a specific set of users and get it done. all good. If it is then it moves from 5% to maybe 10%. Then the next days it goes to 15%. Then it goes to 20, 30. Then it finally becomes live for everybody to use. Okay, that's basically talking about how organization like Netflix or people who are having a million users, billion users, they all use this kind of building a code-based model, which can make them to work really, really well, right? But from the developer code push until it goes to production, absolutely these are all run by non-human touch. So these are all automated processes which runs by itself one by one by one. Now, in one of these processes, Jenkins is going to be a huge, huge taker, which can help you to make this happen. That's why we are looking at these processes today. And most of the builds in Netflix are baked as an AMI. So Amazon mission images and then deployed, and then it becomes scaled. It depends on how many users are using these become it, right? So they use Spinnaker, but it is basically extension of Jenkins. So Jenkins is quite popular from the scaling perspective as well. So with that said, we are pretty good. We understood how organization really do it as well. And this is how we have weekly production release in Netflix really, really work for them. They have too many environments to manage. This is basically go to the build and the dev and deployment. It goes all the way to the production. It's a huge process which goes to a multiple stage gate before we do it, but completely automated. That's what you have to understand. Okay, pretty good. So I'll take a pass here, take your questions, answer the question, and then before we go to the next step, I'm going to pass. So let's quickly talk about now learning now CI/CD pipeline, the ecosystems, the deployments. Now let's see what Jenkins is helping us in this entire process. So Jenkins is completely a continuous integration and also continuous deployment build server. So which can help you to fix the problem if you wanted to continuously integrate many codes and make a new build and then deploy to your particular mission. Jenkins can help you to do that, right? So which is one of the naturally the best systems still in the market, though the cloud atmosphere has changed a lot of things around. For example, Azure DevOps have picked up a lot of speed and gravity today, but Jenkins continue to climb the ladder and stay very, very strongly put. You can make them manual builds. Some of the developers still do a manual build using Jenkins. You can also do a periodical build, a time-based build. Every Friday evening, you need a build. You can also do an automated build. Every time I make a code change, code commits, I wanted to have a build. So you should be able to do it in spite of all these processes. It's completely configurable. 99% of the work in Jenkins don't need any coding, absolutely zero coding. And maybe you can write a little amount of coding here and there to make it to configurable, make it work well, right? And you can create your own plugins also and publish it, but predominantly you have to do it in Java, right? It's an open source tool, but written completely in Java wrapper, and it runs as a standalone server as well. And a lot of people use Jenkins. One of the beautiful why people use Jenkins, though we have got a lot of such tools available in the market, other than Jenkins, Circle CI, TeamCity, Bamboo, GitLabs, right? GitLabs have become slowly popular in today's world. And with all these several tools in place, one thing I personally see a huge advantage for Jenkins is it was a yearly pioneer in the market, and the number of plugins what Jenkins has is amazing. And if you are a tester, if you're an automation engineer, even if you're a developer who don't like to write a lot of code, so you fundamentally end up in using Jenkins because it has hugely supported by community and lot of uh, plugins are pre-built, which you can just use it by just downloading and make it to work. That makes most of the work really, really well. And it sounds you can integrate with anything. You want to integrate with Jet, you want to integrate with your AWS, you want to integrate with your existing Azure DevOps, you want to integrate even with your simple Java project, you can do that, right? Absolutely available for any integrations. And it's quite simple. You don't have to write any codes, right? So which makes life pretty simple for Jenkins to go out. And as you will do it today and tomorrow, you will feel the comfort of Jenkins. Very, very easy to use. And the number of plugins is huge, greatly huge. And it supports almost every single version controlling systems on the earth, pretty much starting from your JIT, GitHub or GitLabs to any JIT clients. And you can go and integrate with your Bitbuckets or to any version controlling system, like even to TFS, so on. And you get a code quality metrics, you get build notifications, you can customize UI. There is no thumb rule. I happen to talk to the creator of Jenkins and in a forum because I'm connected with him personally. So interestingly, he ran last week flakiness, how to cut down the flakiness of the test around when building. So it is quite interesting amount of extendability what you get from Jenkins is amazing. That keeps Jenkins going even today. Okay. And if you see Jenkins, I don't have a statistics for the last year because they have not updated for a little longer. And at least they in 2019 they have a 67 core releases. So many plugins been released and so many commits, and which gives them pretty much they have got users across the globe, and 273 companies are contributing to the Jenkins, right? And that makes it very good, right? Including Netflix. So you see that makes Jenkins really, really popular, standing tall amidst of all the competitions, being an open source. In the modern Jenkins, they also bought a new kind of subsets which we'll be learning, pipeline as a code, which is one of our week number 3 strong learning, how to create a pipelines as a code, how to push our pipeline into a Git repo and try to build it as soon as code does. So how do we do configuration as a code? How to create a plugin I will not be teaching as part of this workshop, but you guys, I'll give a hint. If you want to build your own plugin, you need something like a plugin needed for you for specific reason, then how to write a plugin by yourself. And your packaging. And if you want to use AWS, we'll also see how to do it along with AWS as we go progress this week, how to deploy Jenkins in an AWS machine, make it available for us to use it. We'll also see as part of our learning process entirely, right? That makes a lot of things. I'm not going to go a little more about it. You see almost the huge amount of DevOps ecosystem tools right here. So you got a lot of tools, which is Jenkins can become the hub. From a JIT, if you're using JIT, I think predominantly most of you might be using JIT. How many of you using Maven with the Nexus repository? How many of you using Nexus repository like Maven, right? So if you're using Nexus repository, you would have it. So you can integrate with any of your repositories pretty much. So you have it. And then you go and do a build tool like a Gradle, or if you want to do a Docker imaging services, if you want to use PUBG or Ansible configurations and so on. So you want to do it with Amazon, right? So you can use any of these tools pretty much, get tightly integrated. You want to run your test in Selenium WebDriver, or you want to run against your load test with a Blaze meter. Jenkins can help you to trigger those kind of tests for you. You want to run against Sauce Labs. So you got a Jenkins have got a plugins which can help you to do that. So, and then it talks about the releases. You want to do a release cycles. It can help you to do that as well to the deployments. Also, it depends on you want a Kubernetes deployment or an OpenStack deployment. So you should be able to do it because it gives you a huge amount of plugins and systems which can help you to do that. So that makes Jenkins very, very popular. The another feature which makes Jenkins a little more interesting, and because there are a lot many automation engineers right here, most of the companies don't use Selenium Hub, right? How many of you use Selenium Hub here? Selenium Hub, if you come from automation as a background, how many of you use Selenium Hub? The grid concept with the hub and node concept, yeah. So if you are using hub and node, this can be an alternate. If you don't like the hub and node and you wanted to build something like your own the systems and deployments, if you're a developer, I want to have your own master slave concepts, you can build the master slave concepts right here. You can have one single node. We'll be learning next week how to create our own. Maybe you have a MacBook where you have master, you can have a slave as Windows or Linux. You could be able to do it, and it's completely a Java agent which integrates all this. We'll also see how to do it. We can also see from a test automation perspective how the master will send the request to the slave to run the Selenium test for you. Can be also very well done. This can be very helpful for you to understand this. This is a roadmap of Jenkins, what's been pipeline being assigned right now. So it is they have a machine learning plugin which is being currently worked out. They're changing the UI UX for the accessibility which is coming up. Got a huge roadmap, a lot of people working on this. So which makes it very, very good. Jenkins will continue to evolve, and the learning, whatever you are going to learn for the next 3 weeks, will be a brilliant option for you to either at the work or from the interview perspective. Okay, that gives a context to the Jenkins. Yeah, pretty good. I'll take a pause for a moment. Resume. Yeah, all good. So now what I'm going to do is, first, if you're in a Windows machine, if you do .jenkins, if you open .jenkins, this is going to bring up the entire install Jenkins. Okay, you don't do it. Please don't delete it. I'm going to delete it because I want to show you how does the Jenkins installation works from the scratch. So if you see, by default, I got a lot of Jenkins and the entire thing. A lot of folders has been created by default. And if you see right here, and Jenkins is completely a file system. It is not a database system. What is that meaning? Whatever you are going to do in Jenkins being stored into a file. It is not stored under a database or something. Is that super clear? By any chance, if you delete that Jenkins files and folders, you're done. So generally, you're not going to install Jenkins on your local machine. You're going to have it on your worker node or a server node, which is going to be mostly cloud in today. So which is going to hold all your data completely backed up so that you're not going to do something wrong. But in this case, if you see, I've got a couple of users right here. All the users are noted here. Everything is a folders and file. So secrets holds all my username, passwords, and everything is right here. You'll see any notes I'm creating will be coming and sitting right here. Any jobs I'm going to trigger is going to have, I have so many jobs right now. I'm going to delete all of them and build it for you. Right. So you got so many jobs. Jobs are nothing but just a folder. If you go inside a folder, you will see that these are all coming as an XML files. And the builds are going to be whatever this. I have written so many build executions for some testing purposes. So you've got, see, the builds are happening, all the XML files, all the file systems. So completely file system. The results are captured right here. So everything is completely built as what? A file system. It is absolutely a file system, right? That's what you have to understand, right? So first time, I don't want this. And the most important for it is plugins, all the plugins. I think many of you wouldn't have installed plugins and you said like, I have a problem with installing plugins. The alternate approach for the plugins is what you can do is I'll give you a plugin repository. You can download whatever the plugins you need, download it from the zip file, extract it and drop it here. Is it a good solution? Yes. So you have an antivirus problem, Babu. I have a firewall. My office machine doesn't allow me. All this problem you can come across because the way of Jenkins works actually is basically it is not installing anything, extracting and deploying it on a file system. So just do that. They're all good, pretty much all good, right? So I got so many, but I'm going to delete this and install it as when needed and keep it super good with us, right? Right. Okay. Looks like I covered whatever we need, and we have a workspace. Workspace is going to be like for each job that we are creating, it is going to create something a workspace. The workspace would have the information about whatever we create. Everything will come and sit here. Maybe I don't have anything, but you see here some reports are created right here, all that. So whatever, if you're holding it up, it will come in the workspace. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to delete this entire Jenkins. So we build from scratch, right? We are going to build from scratch. So let me go and select all of these and delete. So this is going to take a little time for us to delete all the Jenkins because I have a huge Jenkins repo. So let it do that. And meanwhile, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Jenkins repo, right? So and bring it up so Jenkins right? That's a website. You are going to see the Jenkins. You go to the download, and Jenkins documentation is reasonably good. So I would recommend if somebody starting with Jenkins and wanted to refer it later, the documentation is reasonably good. They talk about all this, especially we'll use Blue Ocean documentation for the future purposes at this moment. And for clearing your certification, you should refer back to the documentation, because I'm not going to cover all the end-to-end possible Jenkins right here. I'm covering more from a work perspective, not from a certification perspective, but I'll give you a hint about the dumps and kind of questions you might get. If you're going to write it, then I'll give you a separate hint as well offline about it. Okay, now coming back to the Jenkins portion of the system right here. So let's see. So what we have to do, we have to go back to the downloads and install it. Because it is written in Java, it's going to be compatible across all the OS that you want to do it. And you can use Ubuntu, you can use Red Hat, you can use Windows, you can have a free BSD, you can use a Mac OS, whatever could be it is, right? You can able to do this, right? And I'm going to use the last stable version right here, but you can also pick the latest version out of this right one also. So if you see, I'm still on 2.303.1, but you're picking up the latest one here. But I am a little finicky today, so I'm not going to keep an executable install. As I told all of you, I'm going to create a WAR file. The reason is, what is a WAR file? So it is a web archive. I think most of you might have coming from the Maven learning processes. You would have seen Maven would have been creating a web application as an archive. So that's what it will be holding it up. So I'm going to go and download the web archive. This is not specific to your OS at all. This is going to be irrespective of your OS. It's going to be right like this. Right? So it's going to download for me. Maybe I'm connected to a different network. Let me switch network, which can help me to do it faster. Give me a second. Got it connected. I'm going to just resume. It's supposed to be faster. So let's keep checking. Meanwhile, so everything is deleted. You have Jenkins no more working for you. As you do dot, if you are coming from a Maven, the same thing you would have also seen when you do dot M2, the Maven repo is coming and sitting here. So dot, that's how you look at it in Windows machine. Okay, absolutely. So in Mac machine or Linux machine, it's going to be on a particular path. You can look at the path based on your system path, right? So let's look at the WAR file. And the WAR file is going to be a complete web archive. So you all know how to open a WAR file and look at what is written inside the WAR file. Anybody? How to convert a WAR file to looking at the code base? Is that possible? Yes, it is possible. Anybody knows the way to do it? Look like someone is typing. So the easiest way to look at the WAR file code is basically convert the WAR file. So I'm going to copy this WAR file to my desktop and then put it right here. And what you can do is just make a copy of this. So we'll make another copy of this. You see, I got closely about 70 MB closely. And let me rename this and make it a zip file. You make it a zip instead of .war. And as soon as you do this, it's going to go and you can able to look at the entire code base. So you can see all the code bases. So they built a bootstrap. Everything is written in Java, right? You see it. So you got all the code bundles and executables. All these are all pretty much right here, right? So you will see all the components are built in right here, which will help you to do that, right? So let's go back and see how do we install it as we did it last time. I think most of you already installed, but anyways, I'll quickly run through. I'm going to go to my command line. If you're doing this in a Mac or Linux, make sure you have an admin rights. By Windows, you are obviously on a admin mission, most of you. Otherwise, if you are using a PowerShell, make sure you have an admin rights. Otherwise, when they extract and deploy it, you may not have an access to do it. So I'm going to go to my desktop, right? And sorry, I'm between my Mac and Windows, so I'll have that problem. So I'm going to go and do Java -jar. Right. And before that, it is a good idea if you have to check the version. And as you would have noticed that Jenkins is written in a little older technique. They only support two different Java versions at this moment. What are the two different Java versions they support? Any answers? Correct, 8 and 11. So make sure your machine contains either 8 or 11. If you do anything about 8 and 11, then it may not work. So make sure your version is between either 8 or 11, right? Either one of the version, right? So I have right now 8 right here as you did this. So you got it. If somebody has to have 11, it's absolutely okay. But if you don't have 8 and 11, the Jenkins will not work. So I'm going to go now do Java if and jar, right? Jenkins dot, right? So if I do that, it's going to go extract this particular one and it's going to hold it under .jenkins folder. If you see, watch it carefully. So this is going to Jenkins .jenkins, bring it up everything. You see here, it's extracting and deploying it right here. So inside the secrets key, you will have the password coming up auto-generated. So my machine is going to hold it. If you see right here, I got a password for this. I'll copy this for the moment and keep it with me. Okay. And Jenkins will come back and tell me it is ready for me to log in. Probably it takes little time. So why it is taking time? Because it's trying to extract it and do it. There is no other thing internally. So it's going to go and extract it. That's what it's taking a lot of time to do it. And Jenkins has have an internally built-in server, web server, which is helping you to do that. And in case you want to use a different server other than the Apache, then basically you can use it also. They allow you to configure it, but I think may not be required most of the cases. Right, so let's go. I think we should be right here. It's finished the downloads, all the metadata. So it's also said to me Jenkins is fully up and running. So you should see this notification which confirms to you that Jenkins is up. By default, Jenkins run in which port number? So quick answers, which port number it does run? Okay, 8080. 8080 is the port number. So basically, sometimes if it is trying to, let's say I'm going to go to the same thing. Let's see what happens, right? So what you can do is, let's say I'm going to go to the same desktop, trying to run another version of Jenkins. So this time also Jenkins will be trying to run in the same port 8080, but it's supposed to throw me an error saying that, hey, there's something wrong, right? If you listen to see here, it says it's failed to start the Jetty server. And when it said I cannot start the server, I'm trying to use a port number called 8080, which is a local port, and I'm trying to bind to the port, and the machine is not allowing me to bind. That's what it says. So which technically means that something else is running in 8080. So you can go and use a netstart command in Windows, and netstart is going to tell you what is running on what port, right? So you can use find string to find out what is running in 8080 port, which can help you to understand what process is running. It can give you the process ID and the file which is running, which can help you to understand. So in case if I wanted to run Jenkins in a different port number, right? And what you can do in that case, you can go on, I told you as well. So remember, what is the argument that you have to pass? What is the argument you have to pass in case if you wanted to go and get start your Jenkins, right? So what do you have to do? HTTP, yeah, it's a double, not a single, right? So you do that. Now you tell which port you want to run. You can go and use any port, right? 8081, and you should be able to hit it, right? So this is called command line argument that you're passing. When you're starting Jenkins itself, you can pass it actually. There is not just this also. We have got few more arguments where you can pass it as part of starting Jenkins. But from an installation perspective, really from an automation engineer or a developer, we do not really set up Jenkins most of the time, or 98% of the time, you wouldn't be the person setting up the Jenkins at your office. So hence, let's not worry too much about what are the other arguments it does. We can have an installation skip. We can say no admin password should be shown, something like that. You can have a default plugins to be done. Those are all something we can set it while installing, but we don't really care about it at this moment. So we can give up all that stuff and go back to our default Jenkins, right? So let's go to the default Jenkins. So I have it running on my local host and running on the port number 8080 is the port. I hit it. This is going to send a request to your web server, which is running locally, and it's going to bring it up. It's going to take a while first time, and you got a password right here. So I have to go up. Either you can look up to this password, and please note that it's a good idea to keep the password. Some of us are very, very bad in remembering passwords, right? And we keep the passwords mostly if you're married, not the spouse name, right? If you have a kid name will be the best password. We generally keep it, correct? How many of you like me? I'm not exposing my password anyways. So that's common, right? So right, so it is always good idea. Don't keep this password because somebody can attack this password. So preferably, what you can do is you can create your own admin user is what recommended. But at this moment, let me copy this, go back and hit the password and continue. So when I do that, and it's going to ask me, Babu, do you really want to select the plugins? It's going to suggest me plugins. If I use the suggested plugins, it's going to install all the suggested plugins, which is not a great idea because you've got tons of plugins. So I personally recommend don't do that. So rather choose the option what you wanted to install. So I basically it comes with a lot of options. I say selected 19 out of 57. I'm going to say no to anything. So I can go and look at none and it'll remove all of them. And at this moment, I can go ahead and install it, right? So at this moment, I just want to get it off because I want to choose which plugin I want to do later, right? And let's do the admin. So I'm going to use Babu. Keep it very simple password, admin, and Babu. Right, so I'll keep it and save it. So that becomes my admin user. Please understand. Though Google doesn't like it, but Jenkins allows me to do it. And this can be like an IP address also. If you are using in AWS, this is localhost, so only you can access it if you're running it. But in real-time projects, this is going to be a public-facing IP address, or it could be also an internal IP address for your Jenkins access. So you can set it up or you can set it up later. It doesn't have to be just today, right? Right? You can do that later also. So I'll do it later, save and finish. And you can say start using Jenkins, right? So if you see Jenkins is going to keep running, right? Complete the installation for the plugins and take a look. Back here, you got the plugins, 0. We said no plugins at this moment. They're all good. And we currently have 0 jobs. We have not created any workspace for us, and so no workspace. So you got everything pretty much right blank for us to get started. So now, if you come back to your this, you got this particular welcome to Jenkins, all that stuff. Right? Are we good? Any questions? Any questions on the Jenkins installation? Happy to take it. So, for example, if you want to use the plugin, you go to the plugin folder, what I gave you. You right click and download this, right? So once you download this particular folder, extract it and copy that folder and place it in the plugin. That's what you should do. So each plugin, you instead of doing one by one plugin, I would recommend download all the plugin. It will take you like I think 1.5 GB or close to that. I think it's pretty reasonable size. Right, so you have to go and download the entire one and then extract all of them locally on your machine and then copy these folders and place it on the plugins. But if you place it on the plugins, it will not reflect immediately. It will not reflect immediately. What you have to do, because the plugins get loaded when you restart the machine. If you see the plugins are getting loaded, right? So you have to restart the Jenkins to reflect on the plugins. Okay. So make sure to restart the Jenkins after copying pasting the plugin. Sometimes each plugin would have a dependency plugin also. So hence, sometimes when you copy paste, make sure to understand the relationship between each plugin. Sometimes you might see multiple plugins are needed. So if, for example, that is why installing directly from the available plugins is good, because when you go and take a look at these plugins might have a dependency plugin inside. So for installing this plugin, you might need other plugins as well. So hence what happens in that case is those plugins also get already I downloaded and kept it in the Google Drive. So I personally recommend people who has an issue in downloading any specific plugin from your machine, please download all the plugins from the Google Drive, keep it, restart your Jenkins. That should do with you. Is that clear, understood for all of you?
Babu, regarding installation, you said we can install in web server or in cloud, right?
Yes.
Will the process be different actually, or will it be a similar process that you have showed?
There is a two type of installation that you can have when you're dealing with Jenkins. So one is Jenkins is a command line. That's what we all did it, right? In this case, so you can have Jenkins installed as a right as a right installed as a jar file, war file, right, and then you did it through the command line, right? So if you close the command line right now, what will happen? You cannot access your Jenkins anymore, right? It's all gone. So that's what people, most of you unknowingly close it and say Jenkins not working, Jenkins not working, and finally you cannot do much, right? Because it's running in the command line, right? So this is one of the, maybe sometimes people say it is unsafe way to do it, right? So the second option where you have in most of the real-time project is where running installing Jenkins as a Windows service. So it's Jenkins install as a Windows service, right? But there is a two things for you to do it. When you install the Jenkins as a Windows service, if you run any job, it runs in the background only. You will not see in the foreground. It will run everything in the background. But if you do it in the command line, the jobs, whatever you do, if it has to interact with any of the browsers, it will run in the foreground, right? It will run those kind of jobs. For example, if you are a Selenium WebDriver automation engineer and you wanted your Selenium test to run by Jenkins, and if you are not running Selenium as a command line, then you will see that browsers are running in the background and it may fail sometimes because the way Selenium WebDriver designed to interact. So in such scenario, it is recommended to use CLI. But if you are using only for any API testing, or if you are doing it for development, unit test, build generation, you can install that as a Windows service. Okay. So it depends on the need, you pick that option and do with it. Is that super clear? But the process is going to be same, whether do it locally or do it right. Okay. Thanks,
Thanks, Babu.
Babu. Yeah. Okay. Are we all getting better?
And Babu, how to restart the Jenkins?
Restart the Jenkins is going to be very, very simple. So you have in the command line or from the service, which one you want?
Command line, command line.
Command line is going to be Control C or Windows C, Command C in your case, or it's going to be Command C in your uh, uh, Mac boxes, Linux boxes. Okay, and that will kill your Jenkins. And so just to make sure you guys can see this, right? Let me bring my keyboard. Otherwise, you may not know what I'm pressing. So see my thing. It's Jenkins is up and running already. Okay, now Jenkins started, all the plugins listed, Jenkins full and up and running. So I can go ahead and go back and hit it. It's up, right? So you copy pasted, let's say you copy pasted some plugin right now. So you want to stop the command line. So what do you do? Control C. Just press Control C. It just broke, correct? Now do up arrow and enter. That should bring the last command and done. Okay. And if you're doing as a service, if you're installing Jenkins as a service, you go to the service, right? Window R, just type service. Okay, you can go to service app and then you go ahead to the service. You will see here Jenkins is running. In my case, I did not install Jenkins in this machine as a service. In my AWS, it will be a service. Go to the Jenkins as a service. You're able to right click and stop it. Okay, super clear. Anybody having questions around this?
Babu,
Yes.
let's say if all setups done and you start working the Jenkins and deployment start working, in by any cases Jenkins stopped without any notification, or we know Jenkins stopped if not running, so deployment getting failed is at the night.
So you want, is the question is you want a notification to say Jenkins stopped.
Yeah.
See, Jenkins is a pure Java file, correct?
Yeah.
Purely a Java command or Java systems running. When that has been killed, how does you expect Jenkins to notify? You cannot do that, right? But in the world of cloud systems that you are using, like AWS, you have a monitoring services. Okay. So when you go to the AWS learning, when you do it in the next, so you ask the AWS trainer, how do I get notified when a particular port is down or a server is down or a service is down? How do you get notified? So what you'll get in this case is there will be an SNS, right? SNS notification service available in AWS. And it can use some kind of cloud watch. Cloud watch is a monitoring services which will be watching a particular service running in a particular port. It will do a heartbeat check. So as soon as it goes down, then the SNS will go and hit your SMS or a email notification system. Those days we also had a paging systems which will get automatically paged. That will help you to do that. Does it help? By default, Jenkins will not do that for you. So you have to build that system either by using the existing cloud systems, or you have to do something. You can write your own Java Spring Boot solutions which can go and look at the heartbeat of the server, ping if the server is up, and send you a notification.
Two ways only we can know.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's true for any applications, by the way, right, Karthik?
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Are we good? A lot of good questions, but I'm sure you guys are gearing up yourself. So can we go to the next one?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Let's go. So now my Jenkins is up. I'll quickly walk you through the Jenkins UI component. And it's not too heavy, but it's very quickly we will able to understand the components. So you guys can get a little understanding towards it, right? So I have my username password. Right. Okay, looks like my password did not update. I did admin as the password. So let's go. So it went on, right? And okay. Now let me quickly tell you what and all you should be carrying as an admin. If you're an admin, what and all you have to look at, right? All right. So a couple of them, the first thing you have to do is you have to create a job. Right, job is like an activity that you want Jenkins to take care of something you are doing repeatedly and finally feeling manually doing that is like very mechanical. Any job you want to do it, you can do it. Let Jenkins do it for you. For example, any new Maven build that you want to create. I think all of you understood Maven. So you want to create a build, Maven build. If you want to do it instead of you going to a command line or to a Eclipse, right click creating a build, instead of you doing it, you wanted Jenkins to do it for you. Leave the Jenkins to do it. If you're coming from a testing as a perspective or test automation, you wanted a particular test automation script to run at 11 o'clock, let Jenkins do it. You'll just happily go and sleep. If you are coming from a developer perspective and you wanted to go and delete some periodically, you wanted to look at the database and do something, you can go ahead and do it. To the question what Karthik asked, even if you want to use two Jenkins, one Jenkins keep monitoring the other Jenkins whether it is up, you can still do it. It's not a bad idea, but it's not a great idea either. But these are all something you want to repeatedly do something which is mechanically boring or it's complex enough for you to handle, you let Jenkins to do it for you. Is that making sense? So all that kind of activities you need to put it inside the build of called something called job, which has to be created using new item. If you click on new item, you can create here this. Now, Babu, there's only one option here. I can do only freestyle projects. You can do a lot of options, but we have not installed the plugins. As we have not installed the plugins, so hence we are not seeing those options right here. In real-time projects, you'll see a lot of options. You can have a pipeline, you can have a Maven, you can have a kind of copy options, artifacts. So a lot of things are going to be available, but we'll be learning as we progress tomorrow and next week. So let's go with a very simple freestyle. Let's say get started, something like this, get started. Something like this. So select the freestyle, click OK. So where you will get an option for you to see something as an UI. So there is totally 5 default components that you will see. General is basically to choose something which is general component. Source code is basically your code, where your code is living. You can tell, hey, my code is living in my local machine or in a particular JIT or something. You have to tell in this one. Build trigger is when you want the test to run or when you want the build to get created, when you want the deployment to happen. So all this can be done through your build trigger. And build is actually the original build itself, what you want to do with the build, right? This can be a Windows machine or could be a Linux, Mac calls that you want to do it, right? All this can be it. Then you have something called post build. Once the build is done, then what do you want to do? You want to call someone and tell them that build is done, or how do you want to email them, or how many people to email, or probably you want to send another activity. Hey, I'm done with my first deployment in the dev. I wanted to let know my testers to start the automated test. Then you can do it in a post build. So you can do a lot of things on the post build, depends on your case to case scenario. And Jenkins give you option of question mark. If you click on it, it'll give you a hint what is it all about. So if you're learning for the first time, you're probably doing at night, I'm not around to help you, then don't Google it. Just click on this question mark and start reading. Most of the time you'll end up in a meaningful information, which can be a good start. Okay, so I'll come back to the screen again and give you a little more idea. So, and the next important thing, this is going to be the super important thing that you have to really do. And the next important thing, maybe people is not going to be very essential. Maybe it is a one-time setup that you do. For example, I got a new member join my DevOps team or new member in my automation team or dev team who need an access. I can go and create an access for him right here. Or actually it's a view screen, but you can create it. But most of the time, as a Jenkins admin, you may not be working on new item, you'll be working on manage Jenkins. This would be most of the, this is a Jenkins administrator job role. This is a page of the Jenkins administrator job role where you have a lot of things to do. So we'll see most of the things, configuration in the system where you have a lot of configuration to do. All the tools are going to be configured. The Maven path, JDK path, everything is going to be configured right here. JDK path, Maven path, any additional plugins that we're creating, everything is going to be right here inside the tool configuration. All the plugins are going to be living in the managed plugins. And all the, as I told you, if you want to do that, right, this is going to be the primary server for Jenkins. I have installed locally. So this is going to be your entire master, but you can also create your slave nodes by creating your own nodes. So tomorrow, or actually next week, you'll see a master slave. My Mac machine may be a master or a slave, and my other machine can be a master itself. You guys can do that by creating 2 AWS EC2 machines and make one of them as a slave, one of them as a master, or you can have multiple actually. If you're smart enough, I can let you to create 3 EC2 machines for 2 hours and you can shut down, you will still get it free of cost. So you can do it. And Baba, I started as a command line. I want to install as a Windows service later. Is it possible? Yes, you can go ahead and do that also. Windows as a install as a Windows service. These are all for the security, Jenkins, for letting somebody to access. Who has to access it? We will talk about the access privileges matrix, which can help you to do who can access what, how to control someone access from coming into the system, what kind of role I want to give can be part of that, configuring global security. Users can be added, deleted, all this are going to be here. If Jenkins is going down or went down, why it went down or something, you will be able to see some of the system properties right here, which can give you a little more insight about what are the different configurations you have, what the environment variable we added to this system, and the plugins, what the different plugins I have in place, how much memory it is consuming right now, how many threads it really ran. All this can be a statistical information. If you are a Jenkins administrator, then you come to this screen and take a look at it to find out what went wrong with your plugins, or you installed a plugin but you don't see a plugin installed right here. Why? Because that could be a right dependency plugin missing. So how do you see it? You may not see it from here. You have to go to the plugin screen how much memory it is taking, is it under the control or not under the control. So, but in this machine, the not taking a lot, these are all something you wanted to go and take a look at it. And then you also see the statistics which can be helpful, which again talks about how many threads are running, how many busy, how many available nodes available, how many queued for the jobs. For example, I'm sending for like 5 bills actually. If you happen to know what I heard from one of the PayPal conferences, the dev team and one of the DevOps conference said like they have got 1,000 equivalent machines available in real-time productions across the regions, across the world. So when they have to run so many, they have said like they have more than 50 Jenkins master slave nodes, which helps them to run more than few thousand jobs every single hour or day. I don't remember exactly how or day, but they have got so many jobs to run. So every job doesn't have to be served immediately. They can queue up and wait. So you can see all the how many queued, how many are busy, all that can be read from here. What is the queue length? You can say how many maximum. I can time out of the queue. If you're coming from Selenium, you can run like 200 Selenium tests. Then you can say only 5 nodes are available, only 5 will be picked up. So you can talk about what is the total number of available, how many queued up and waiting. These can be also said. These are all something for you to understand. So from an admin perspective, right? System logs are going to give you a complete log when something is running. So you can click on this log. Logs will tell what is happening. Whatever you see in the command line, you can see it here too. Right? So this gives you complete logs. Again, entirely file system. Please understand this is not a database here. And then these are all command line and script. We will be seeing in the upcoming weeks how to use some of them. May not go each one of them, but assume that I'm trying to shut down for a maintenance, right? I'm shutting down for a maintenance. Then you can tell them how to shut down, what activities that you have to do, and what is the reason, and you can prepare for shutdown. So any job which is running, for example, there's a job running, right? For example, assume that there's a deployment that is going to a testing environment. So I can prepare for shutdown, but it will not shut down immediately. It will not terminate. It will complete the process, all the jobs, then it will shut down smoothly. Is it making sense to all of you? These are all something you can configure as part of your admin job role, so you will able to manage them very well. So this is what you will have it. We'll go deeper, understand each one of them as we progress every single day. And the views are basically to customize what you want to see, what you don't want to see. This is not very interesting to me either, because it is not a big screens and looks feels, and you can still. But if you're a Jenkins admin, you got like 500 jobs to look at, and you don't have a time to go and look at each of the job. We have 3 Jenkins administrator, so you can go and tell I'll only focus on these projects. I'll only work on Monday to Thursday. So I'll look at only these jobs. You can create your own list, right? Views which can help you to say which jobs you want to look at, which jobs you don't want to look at. You can contain it from the view perspective. Okay, that's a basic overview about the UI that you have. But if you're a developer or a tester, you will be spending a lot of time on the new item. If you're a Jenkins admin, you will be spending most of the time on the manager. Good. Is that understandable? Yes. A basic idea. Brilliant. So what we will do is we will take a pause and probably take a 10-15 minutes break and come back and restart it. Now we will learn with a very simple running a simple job in Maven and see how that really works, right? Before that, I just want to quickly brief you about certifications. So if someone is interested in writing Jenkins certification, it can be useful as well. Okay. So if you go to Jenkins certification option, you have 2 different certifications for Jenkins, right? There are 2 certifications available for Jenkins. I don't know if they have yet leaving it. You can do it online actually. So if you go to CloudBees, is the official organization who is currently holding up Jenkins for enterprises. So you've got two things. One is certified Jenkins engineer. This is more than enough for you all. You don't have to write certified cloud Jenkins engineer because it has cloud based questions as well. This is cloud based is not used by a lot of the organization. It has few more plugins, few more processes. You can go to certified Jenkins engineer more than that. So whatever required for certified Jenkins engineer, including pipeline administration and Jenkins fundamental, will be covering completely in and out. So there shouldn't be a problem with that, right? So the currently also they say that I don't know if they allow you right now to do it online, right? But they say that you will be able to access the internet or refer to notes, no, but you have to write only from test center. But before that, they were actually giving you option. And also currently, if you take the exam, it's only $99 up, right? So it's not bigger than that, right? So in case if you want to write the exam by yourself, after the learning process, catch up with me offline on the group. I'll give you a hint how to write the exam, how to prepare it, so that you will be able to crack it for sure. Okay, right. So anybody interested? Type interested. At least I know that who wanted to write certification. Make sure before writing the certification, I personally will ask you if your organization is supporting you on path. If your organization, the fee of certification would be $99, roughly talking about 7,000 odd rupees. So your organization may be paying you. So take a look at it. It might be useful also, right? If your organization supporting, it is a good idea to write it after the 3 weeks, immediate after 3 weeks. I'll give you some reference material and kind of exams. So they do. Okay, all right. If it is just the AWS, then this one is nothing to do with AWS. So don't do that, right? So, right, anyways, let's get started. Are we ready? Let's move on. So first I'm going to teach you a very, very simple job that I'm going to plan it, right? Let's say do like get started. So what I'm planning to do is currently go to get started. I think we have one. So we'll say get started 2 and click freestyle and click OK. You get a job created. You go to dashboards and look at the existing job, you'll see the 2 jobs. So click on the job and come back to the configure option where you will be able to write. This is a sample test. Something like this. You can discard old builds. What is that meaning? If it has already created some, don't practice along with me in parallel. What I can do is I'll give you enough time for you to practice. I'll give an activity for you after making you to learn, then you can implement it. Is that all okay for all of you? Keep listening, write notes. Keep listening and write notes. So you create an activity and then you can choose all these options. We'll learn in details. This is for parallel execution. This is basically you are, for example, assume you got like 100 jobs with you, but you found that some of the jobs are not related to you anymore. You can disable it for temporarily so that it will not show you in the screen. But in case you want to enable it, later you will be able to enable it. Okay, it is like soft delete, right? So these kind of options. Parameter we'll be learning tomorrow. I'll show you how to pass a parameter to any build. So we can do it. Discard old builds are basically if you every time you run a job, it will be creating a build and you don't want to keep the older builds with your system. Sometimes it can give you a wrong impression. So you can say discard old builds that can allow you to delete the build. So anyway, we are not worried about these ones at this moment. It's just a simple job. I'm not going to use an source code. I'm going to use my existing simple execution. So I'm not going to write anything. Build triggers, we'll learn each one of them in detail. We have got few more. We'll also learn them. So yeah, I want to do a build. So I can go to like, I'm on a Windows machine here. So I can open a execute Windows command. If you are using a Linux or a Mac, make sure to use the shell command. And I just want to write a command, something like this, very simple Java -version, right? Something like this. Technically, what is expected to do is this is command, right? A Windows command, so it can execute any command for you, right? So you can just put Java -version here, and just for a sample one, right? We're going to improve upon it by running some Java test or some unit test or some build verification for Selenium test. Could be something like that. So I'm going to put executing a Windows command right here, and you got an advanced, got a lot of features where I can able to enable some of the logs and the environment filters. We'll come back to that later. Then if you want to have a multiple build steps, you can add another steps also. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just running one command. It is all good. So I don't want to add any other step. Post build, I want to send an email or archive the files. I'll do it later. I'll just tell you this is how you do it. In this case, I've not done anything other than general. I type some description. I told I'm not going to use any code. I go to the build trigger. I said I don't want to do it. I'm going to do it manually at this moment. In the build, I went and wrote some executing some Windows command for me, and then I just add a post build no action. Say apply, save it. You got back to dashboard. You got the second. So in this one, if you see personally, I'm doing nothing like just open a command prompt and run a command. That's all it is doing. So nothing more. So go and hit the build button. So which is going to build a job for you manually. You are manually hit it. So it's going to go and start. So this is the name of the job, which is called get started to, right? So which technically ran. You see that green color one, which clearly says the build is successful, but I want to see the logs. If you want to see the logs, what you can do is you can click on this link, and basically you will see that already one iteration ran successfully. If you click on this, and you would see a console output, and there you can see that it tried launching a particular Jenkins, and then finally it started a Java version command. That command gave this output, then it finally executed exit, so it came out of it. So if you see here, this is exactly what it did. Exactly what it did is this is what it did actually. But it created a workspace once. So as I'll go back to the workspace dot Jenkins. Whatever job I'm creating, that job is going to come and live inside a workspace, and that workspace name is get started to, and it has nothing file. It doesn't have to pull because it's using my local input. But it ran successfully. So I have to go to the jobs. So let me repeat again. The workspace is a folder where I'm going to keep all my code that I'm going to manage, but it doesn't have any code, so nothing is here available. Whereas in the jobs, we have a get started to, where we have, if you see the config.xml, I'll just open and show you what it is trying to do. So whatever we configured, everything is going to be in the XML format. Okay. So I wrote something called description, correct? This is available here. Should I keep the dependency? It said no. Then it basically, if you see here, I wrote a Windows command. That's basically a batch file, and it is calling java-version. So this is technically what it is doing, right? It is actually an XML file. So if you go back to this XML file and see the next build number, it stores what is the last build number it built and what should be the next build number. So already I ran one build, the next build number is 2. Paranga, if I told you very, very clearly to all of you, I made it very clear, it is completely a file system, correct? So every information is not stored in a database, it's stored in a file. So if I make a change to this as 3, the next build number will be 3. 2 is skipped. Is that clear to all of you?
Babu, one more question on that. You already checked on the Discord the old builds, right? So will that be the incremental order to update the build number or?
No, nothing to do with the discard old builds. Old build meaning build outcome, right? This one.
The output file. Yes,
Yeah, this one will be discarded. But it is not going to change this build number. It is required for you.
Oh, this will consume a lot of memory in our local system.
No memory. It is a small file. It doesn't have any problem. The only thing is, as I told you, the Jenkins is going to hold up and run you. If you see the Jenkins report right now, and currently the build number what it ran basically is, if you see here, the build is 1. Correct?
Yes.
Now what it is, accordingly, it automatically wrote a new file and wrote like next build number to be 2, but I made it as 3. Correct?
You change the config, yes.
I changed, but it is technically, it is, I told you, everything is a file system. I go and run right now. So when I'm running the next execution right now, so let's see what happens. Build scheduled. So you see here, build is being get right here. The next build is going to be 3. Next, if we come back to this one, the next build number would have automatically changed to
4. Okay.
Okay, so everything is written as a file system right here. Okay, now coming to the implementation, if you see each build, what is happening is it creates something called build.xml. It creates something called build.xml, which user ID ran it, what time step started the test, right? What happened to the result, how long it took, and where is the workspace for that code, right? So these are all information what is being stored inside the build.xml, which you will able to see it as you progress more and more tests, you will able to track it. So with that said, jobs folder will have the information about the job which got executed, everything in an XML format. So from the, if you want to become a DevOps engineer, they might ask you, hey, how does it Jenkins manage it? It's a Java code base which manages all your jobs in an XML format, which is parsing the XML internally and trying to trigger some test based on the scheduled component, everything, right? Everything is completely a file system. Okay, coming back. Now we learned what is a workspace. Workspace is where we have the real code, which can be stored in the JIT and pulled it down. I'll show you that next. And then we have also jobs, which executes and gives us the results. Okay, so we got all this right now. Okay, let's go to the next one. So what if, Babu, if I'm trying to do some test, let's say that class doesn't exist. So I'm going to configure the same test, go to the build, look at it. I'm going to type some command, something like this, Java hello, something like this. There is no Java class called hello. I'm not compiled. It's not existing right here. So I'm going to go and save and run it. So if I build it right now, I'm supposed to get an exception. So let's see if it is going to run. The test failed. If you see the test failed, red color, click on it, look at the console. It's going to go and say could not find or load main class. So that's what it's telling me, right? So it is marked that particular build as a failure because it throws an exception. Is that super clear for all of you? So which means this talks about the build status. The build status is what we saw in the build history as well, also in the dashboard. The dashboard shows you the last build status. The dashboard showed you the last build status, what happened. If you want to see the histories and failures, click on the ones that can tell you the entire information in the build history where you will be able to see this. Is that clear so far? Everybody?
Babu, in the scenario which you just explained, we changed the execution 1 from 3, but we have an entry for 2 in the.
It will I told you only from the file. It will not skip the second one. It will not skip the second one. It will still have the second one, right? It will have still the second one. I showed you just to give up. It will have multiple places. It holds the information. Okay, multiple places. It holds the information. 1 second. Let me show you that. It is not only showing you from the next build
So
number.
build number 2 and 3 will show the same job details.
Correct. So, okay, right. Okay. Anything else you guys want from the jobs or the workspace? Are we good with it?
One more thing, I mean, we didn't see it in action, but when you explained about discard build, if I give a discard build, will it remove from that console output?
Discard. The reason is it will only discard the old bills. Not count will be still there in the file system.
Okay, it will not remove from build history and all.
No,
It
no,
will still be
it
there.
will
Okay.
stay there.
Okay.
The build will be only the build will not be there. See, for example, generally in my project, if you are doing, for example, for our tuna product builds, the tuna product builds are basically it is creating as a war file. For example, I'll just show you one of our product builds that we are doing. And if you see the tuna outcome in the target folder, so the war file would be something like 130 MB file Okay. So if I try to create like 1500 MB files, it will end up in few GBs, right? So I don't want to retain them because I crossed those timelines. So you can say discard old builds. Only the outcome build will be deleted, not the history. Is that clear? The outcome, I'll show you one more when you go to the next example.
Okay.
Okay, are we all good so far? Anybody having questions?
Babu, one question. So, do we have the option to retain last 10 builds or some configuration to retain only last few builds and
Yeah,
discard?
we have we have for which we have to install a folder plugin. So by default, in the default Jenkins, you will not see it. But what you wanted to see is only the last 10 status, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So we have something called a folder plugin where you will able to configure how many you wanted to see it. So there are plenty of plugins available for each one of you, and you have to look at the right plugin, install the plugin, configure it. The vanilla Jenkins will not give you that.
Okay, Babu. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Are we good?
Babu, I do have one question. In my current project, when I'm running Jenkins, so there is an option like keep this build forever. So for that, we need to add any plugin or it's automatically is in Jenkins.
Yeah, you're telling keep this plugin for so many hours or something, correct?
Keep this build forever. Suppose I run like a build number 2. So after that, I got the option like keep this build. So that kind of option is there.
Those all doesn't come with the default Jenkins. So these are all plugins which will help you to store it.
Okay.
So whatever you are seeing right here, these are all the only features available by default by the Jenkins by default. Anything you wanted to do beyond these options, for example, you cannot maintain with the jet here, you don't see a lot of build triggers, you don't have an option right here. All these are all going to be part of the plugins. As you install plugins, you'll see more features coming and living here. Okay, is that a clear thought here? So here is the default vanilla Jenkins looking for you. Okay, anything outside this is coming completely from the plugin. Okay, are we good? Can we move forward? Okay, so I'm going to do one more, then we do the practice aspect. So the first one I want to do is this. So number one, I'm going to go and look at the plugin. I want to install a plugin. What plugin I want to install? I want to have a JIT plugin to install. So I'm going to type JIT and search for it. You will end up in seeing too many JIT plugins. So just wanted to, you have to know a little more insight. So for a little more insight, you have to read a little clicking on this each link, which will give you a description, how it is documented, everything will be given. So the JIT plugin provides fundamental JIT operations for Jenkins projects, including poll, fetch, checkout, branch, list. I'm sure if you understood all the JIT commands, these are all covered for you, right? So which does most of the job for you. So we are pretty good with this. So what I can do is I can go to the JIT plugin and go ahead and install it. So select this. We have two options available. Install without restart, download now, install after restart. So we have two options. I will go and say install without restart because I am pretty much don't want to wait for the installation to complete. So you have to see it has so many internal dependencies. That's what I talked about. So when you copy paste a plugin, you have to copy paste all the dependencies. Otherwise, the plugin will not reflect. For anybody who is not downloading directly, that is a problem you will face. So make sure you understand what are the dependencies required and you have to download it. For example, if you see the SSH credential, it might have another dependency called internal dependency. So you should be a little more careful when you are using this. That is why I said persons who are having any download issues or maybe firewall issues on your laptop because of the official laptop that you're using. So all that you have to do is go to the plugins, download all the plugins, copy paste the plugins right into your plugins folder. Is that making sense? So otherwise what will happen is you will miss all the dependencies. As you miss the dependencies, your plugins will not work. So now my last plugin is going on, so it should be available pretty shortly. So we should be good to get started with the JIT plugin. Are we good, guys? Okay.
Babu, the plugin path you shared was from the test leaf LAN path, right?
Correct.
So can we download the plugin from a common place? Say tomorrow, if some new dependency has been added and if you're not aware of it, is like Maven repository, is there any common plugin available?
You don't have something like a Maven Central, but what you'll do is you can see most of the plugins who are writes, they give you a path where you can download also. They give you a path where you can get downloaded also. You'll see that GitHub releases, you got it. So you can go ahead and find this one. They'll have all the dependencies downloaded right here. So you can also download from there. It depends on who is writing it. Some of the plugins are maintained by the Jenkins team, and many of the plugins are written by the open source team. So you have to watch out and see, make sure you are using it from the right repository. So what you're asking is, instead, if I need more plugins other than what is given by test leaf, or if you want to update a new version, where to look for? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah. As I told you, you have to watch out for that plugins repo and go and manually download, add it to yours. Is that making sense?
Okay. Yeah.
You understood? Yes, no.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So we are not going to keep maintaining because we have built this only for your learning purposes. For official purpose, you have to do it. Okay. Okay, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a new another item. Now let's see, get started with JIT. So I'm going to select the freestyle project, click OK. Now, as soon as I do it, the difference is, you see here, there is a JIT added right here. Okay, so now what is going to happen right now is you have to pull the code from JIT, and run. And now I'm going to select the JIT. Here I need to give the JIT repo. Okay. Pradeep, you mentioned your Google Drive is blocked and linked redirects to Google Drive. Yeah. At the moment, what you can do, Pradeep, in your case is you download. I'll tell you after each learning what are the different plugins you need to install. Just follow it. You should be fine. Is that clear? Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull from one of my, I already have my GitHub just for your learning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go and do test lead / Jenkins. That's something which I pushed this morning so that you guys can have learning. So I have got something very simple one. Let me start with a schedule, something which you see, this is the project you have to pull. So when you pull the project, as you might all know this one, make sure you are doing it not at the Jenkins level. You have to look at the schedule job where my project is, right? This is where my code is, right? So this Java code you have to download and run, correct? So if you have to do it, you go to the schedule level. This should be your path. But if you put this path right here, you see how it reacts to it. If you put this path and this may not like it, the reason it is telling is it is not found, correct? It is not found. So what you have to do is you have to do always to the Jenkins main path. So copy this path and go and add here, paste. Right. Now, when you do that, you are pretty much, you are putting to this path. The code is going to be download the entire project, which is available in this folder. So all this will come to your workspace by default. So that's what you should make sure you do it, number one. Now, next it is asking which branch I need to download it from. So I have a master branch only currently. So you go and say master branch, leave it. If you have a multiple branches that you created, then make sure you download from that particular branch, correct? So I have only in the main branch, which is master branch. So if you have a multiple branch, you can add a branch and put the branch into place. We'll see that also in the future if needed. Okay, now you should make sure this particular JIT is basically a public JIT, which means you see here it is a public repo. Anybody can pull. They cannot push, but they can pull. So I can add a one without asking for the credential. But if I'm accessing something which is a private repo, let's see if I have some private repo. Let me take a look. Like I don't hold any private repo here. In my personal folders, I might have. So when you see something a private repo, then I need to give the particular credentials also right here. Okay, because I may not have access to even read that particular one. So I have to add the credential in the Jenkins credential folder. So where if I go to the Jenkins credential, I need to go and put the username and the password. So once I have the username and password right here, I have to select this credential. Then only anyone can pull it. Without knowing the username password of the JIT, you will not be allowed to pull the code because you will not even see the code on a public. Is that understandable? So we'll try with the one private as well as part of our learning process. Now, once we do that, then come down to the build, and the build has supposed to run some command. So what I'm going to show you is I'm going to just show you something and make my test to fail first so that you will understand how the structure is coming. Then you will know that inside the Jenkins, the code is under schedule, job, source, job, and the print console. This is what the code is going to be. But to understand this, you later to come and fail here. I'm going to say print console. Right? It is basically a Java code. So hence I have to compile the code first, Java C. So I'm going to say print console.java and followed by I'm going to say Java and print console, something like this, right? It's a pretty simple Java code. I'm pulling the code from JIT, I'm compiling the code and running the Java, right? That's what I'm trying to do. So just save it, run it. Now this code is going to fail for sure because the path is not, package names are not set right, correct? So it's going to certainly fail. But let's make sure, understand how the workspace is built. Because currently, if you see right now, the workspace is not going to be there. .Jenkins, if you go to the workspace is not holding it up yet for the JIT project. So I'm going to go back to the dashboard and build now. So when I say build now, you are supposed to get started with JIT, and you got a JIT, right? And that's going to go and help me to download the code from the machine. So if something goes wrong, I'm supposed to look at the log file. Click on this and it's failed. Let's go and look at the console output. So it pulled the code, okay, but it seems like timed out. Could not find any revision. Okay. Let's see what is it saying. It seems to be got timing out when I'm talking to the JIT remote. That's what it's saying. I'm going to rerun it. Probably my network or speed or something is not helping me. So let me go and hit it again and see what happens this time. This time also failed very quickly. Same thing, right? We check. This is accessible. The origin, time mode. Couldn't find revision. Okay, didn't fetch. Yeah, JIT path I thought I added. So let me check. Okay, so now it didn't tell me JIT is not found, right? So that's interesting. So let me also check a moment, go back if my JIT path is having a trouble. So I'll go here and add my JIT. Okay, JIT.exe is not picked up. So I'm sure all of you have JIT already set. If it is not set, let me check. So let me check. It is, should be under my C:JIT somewhere. I kept it. Okay, if you're not set your JIT, I'll also show you how to set the JIT. So let me go and keep the JIT. So JIT download for Windows, right? So go and download the JIT for the Windows, and you guys are working. I'm sure everybody should have JIT already installed. So let me add that into my path and put it onto the Jenkins. I had there. Okay, let's do it. Okay, and so it is installing in the C program files JIT. So I'm going to pick the path and make sure I have that bin. And here is what you will get jit.exe. I'll copy this one as a path. Go back to my Jenkins. So go back to the Jenkins and go to the manage Jenkins, go to the global tool configuration. And then within the global configuration, you have a JIT. So you have to put the path of the JIT right here. So make sure you are putting a path up to the bin folder where you have jit.exe. So you have to make sure you put the path until right here. And that way you will have the path of this added, apply it, save it, and then you should have jit.exe executed by this. This path can be avoided if you have an environmental path also. So we'll talk about it later in the session. Okay, so let's go back to the Jenkins, go back to the build history, and we got to see now JIT2, and we can go and again build this again. Okay, so how to build this again? Either you can go to that particular dashboard, click, or you can go to the particular job and run it from there as. So it started running. So let me look at the console output. Okay, and it said the same thing to me. Okay, I'll take a moment to take a look at this and then solve it for you folks. And meanwhile, what you can do right now is you guys can create a simple job on your Jenkins and hit with a console, right? And then you will be able to do it. Okay, is that fine? So go ahead and create a simple. No, JIT path is for other repo tools like GitLab. No, not needed. For sure, it is not needed, Rahul. But yeah, you are pretty good. So go ahead and get started. I will meanwhile take a look and then see what is going wrong and then keep it ready for you. Okay. So meanwhile, what you all can do, you can create one of the simple option for all of you. You guys can create a simple one job and make sure you can trigger the job. Do that. If you have trouble, I'll take the one in 2 minutes. Okay. Right. Okay. Correct. Dinesh, you are right. I think I made a mistake of not here, right? I have to share it here, right? So I was pretty awkward. I stored it here, right? So that was horrible. Okay, so I'll have to put some name right here. I'll put the path to the exe here. So by the way, that's the reason it will have me out. So I was awkward. So let's go back and hit the button again. That also failed. Control output. Yeah, it's the same thing I'm getting. But I'll take a look, right? You take a pass. I'll take a look what's happening with me. So I'll give you a try back, right? Meanwhile, you can go and get started with a simple one. Also start installing the plugin, JIT plugin, and try getting started. Okay, all of you, quick, and we'll catch up. I think if you have trouble, voice out here. Let's do it. So let me repeat, let me start from the scratch. So what we are trying to do is first we are trying to integrate our Jenkins with the JIT. The first thing we have to do is go to the manage Jenkins and then make sure go to the plugin and then go to the available. As I told you, search for the JIT and then that should help you to do that. But we already installed. So if you go to the install and search for the JIT, I already installed the JIT one. So as I install the JIT one, JIT also had all the other ones. If you see here, I cannot uninstall everything. If I uninstall JIT, so others are going to be open as well because everything is depends on the JIT. So I cannot uninstall that one alone. Is that understandable for all of you? I cannot uninstall because it is actually built based on another dependency. Is that clear for all of you? Right. So if I uninstall the JIT plugin, then others are going to be available. So as I told you, it is always a good idea. You find what is the right plugin, install it. If you have a plugin download issues due to your firewall or your antivirus blocking you, you cannot solve it. Then as I told you, download all the plugins and then go extract it, place it in the plugins folder. As you noted in my Jenkins plugins, only JIT related plugins are going to be here. But I gave you all the plugins. Just paste it here. It might take a while, but then restart the Jenkins. That should help you to solve the problem. So you should see all the available plugins and installed plugins as well. So now after completing the plugins, then make sure if you don't have if you go to a JIT available on your command line, if you have it, well and good. If you don't have a JIT available on the command line, install the JIT command line. Type JIT and then you will able to see the JIT command opening up. So then you go to the manage Jenkins and add your global tool configuration and put the JIT path, and JIT path is going to be something like this. So where my JIT exe file is available. In Mac user, you should see it under user bin directory by default or user local, depends on what you have set. Here is where you will see the JIT.exe sitting up for you, right? So maybe cd paste it and here, and if you see the tree, you will see the JIT.exe sitting up here. So make sure that correct path is put up in place. You can also do install automatically. If you have not installed anything, it will automatically set it for you. So after doing these two steps, this is the preconditions that we did. One, installing the plugin, another one, downloading the JIT and setting up the path. Then we go and create a new job, and the job, let me call get started with JIT2, something like this. Freestyle project, click OK. So I'm not going to put description this time. Source code management, go to the JIT and pull the JIT path that we already have in place. So I have a job at the Jenkins level. Click on this, copy this path, and I'm sure each one of you have this. So let me copy this, also share it in the chat box. In case somebody don't have it, you can use this. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll go and add this path, and as soon as I paste it, the JIT error should really go away. So make sure it went away. As you noted, it has basically changed this branch to main, or you can change the existing one as master in the JIT. So once you do this, come to the build trigger, we're not doing anything. At the build level, as I told you in the Windows command, you have to first put something which is wrong, let it be so, or I'm not going to even put anything at this moment. See what happens. Go and save this and just go build now. What is going to happen in this case is the workspace is going to be created for the JIT2, and it's pulled all this 531, right? It pulled all my code right here, and whichever in the JIT, it came here, build automation and scheduled job. And I have my code inside the scheduled job source as a Java file. So what I can do is, this is basically how to run. Either I run as a Maven command to generate the class files, or I can create as a Java file. If you have to create as a Java, you have to go to this path. So I have to take this path. Already my workspace will put me to this path. From here, I need to move on and type a command here. So what I'll do in this case is go to my configure, look at it carefully. I'm going to put a build right now. Take me a little time right here and go to the build execute Windows command, or you can do it also in the other command. So just go to the workspace where you have it. You are starting from here because by default you will land up into that workspace. By default, this job will take you to this workspace. From there, I have to go cd schedule job /src/job. It is not a Maven project, so you will not see source main Java. It is a simple Java project. So you have to type src job / I've got directly the class. So I'll stop here and come to the next code, compile the code. I think, basic Java, you have to compile the code. So you have to write the class name, print console.java. So when I run this code, what should happen right now? Let me go and run this one now, build now. So what will happen this time? The workspace technically, basically, you should have downloaded everything, the code. It's already the same version. It should not be downloading again, but it has went on to do the cd schedule job source Java first line of code, and second line of code, it ran Java C print console.java. So let me go back to my job and take a look. Your class file got created. The Java code converted into a class. Now I need to run the class file. So if you open the console print console.java and take a look at it, it's already holding the package called job. So I have to go out, go one step backwards if I have to run this, right? So what I'll do is right now, if you see the configure again, come back to the build. So I have to go one step backwards, cd ... It'll help me to go backwards. Now run the Java command. Java command is actually source, not source, job. That's a package name, job / you have to write job, and within the job, we have to write the console, right? Print console. Right? That's how the code is going to be, right? So your package name dot class, right? That's how the code is going to be, because the reason is you have written inside the package, the code is written inside the package job. So you write job dot, right? Package name dot class name. That's how you have put the code and apply it, and then save it and run it right now. So that should help you to do the job. This time it should compile and run the code as well, right? That should help you to do that. Right, it got running, and let's go to the console output. Take a look at the Java C command, compiled it, the cd dot, it went to the previous path called src, then ran the command Java job print console. Hooray, the second Jenkins job. So it ran successfully. So we ran it one without JIT, second job we ran with JIT in place. Are we good? We good? Is that clear for all of you? So if you're stuck, don't panic. I'm available to help you to make sure we get this. So let's go get it done. Okay, time starts now. Okay, so today what did we learn? We learned the Jenkins and the CI/CD basic background about it. We looked at how Netflix does it today. Actually, Facebook does very similar. We got the introduction about the Jenkins, what Jenkins can do, why it is so popular because of the plugins. We also looked at the certification overview, what kind of certification you have to take, the JCE. Then we looked at the Jenkins architecture, how it is built and what is the folder structures it has. We also had a UI walkthrough about it, right, to understand the manage plugins and the manage Jenkins component, all that stuff, right? We will dig deeper as we progress. And then we also did set up a basic job, which is a freestyle job with a local, right? Taking the code from our local. Then we also practice a simple job. I think most of you did it. Then I gave you a basic background about the plugins. We have not dig deeper to this. Then we had a JIT plugin installed, and then basically we return a basic job or the freestyle with the JIT. How does it comes to the workspace? How does the job runs it? We saw that, and then we have to understand the triggers. So we will leave the triggers for tomorrow and practice the triggers also tomorrow. When we looked at integrating with the JIT, and we did a couple of things, and JIT plugin was installed from the managed plugins. If you had a trouble in downloading, then we had an alternate option of downloading and adding it, but make sure the dependency plugins also downloaded correctly. Then we download the JIT client if you don't have one on your mission, and then set the JIT path into your manage Jenkins global tool config JIT path. And then after doing that, created the job, which is a freestyle job right now. And then we went on to make sure when we creating the job, it shows the JIT plugin, show the source code management to choose the JIT, where we chosen the JIT or the entire root path, and then the branch that we are using. If we have an authentication, we also tried making an authentication. And then the type the JIT path, set the credential and branches, for which I wanted to show you something very quick. So let me do it again from the Windows machine. And I think you all can see my Windows machine right here. So let's go back and hit this particular component, right? I'm going to make this from public to basically I'm going to change this, right? So let me make sure I log in. I'll check what is my login. Looks like I don't have the right. Let me do that in a moment. And JIT have dot. This is currently, if you see here, this is basically coming as public. So I'm going to go to my other MacBook, which I have already logged into the GitHub with my right credential. I'm going to make that the project that you're looking at is from public to change it to private, because I already logged in there. So I'm going to make it as private. So as soon as I change it to private, the problem is that you will not able to access it. So each one of you are going to have a trouble, right? And so I'm trying to go and change it in a moment. Right, and there we go. I did it. I do that. Give me one more second. I'm going to change it, making sure it is private. Okay, I did changing it right now, and looks like it did become private. Okay, now you cannot access them because it's a private. I am not logged into my system, correct? And if I log in with my right username password, I don't remember, it is auto stored in my Chrome. So maybe tomorrow I'll log in with that right password. If you see right here, if I try go and hit it right now and try building it, so this is not going to work, right? Because it is going to fail because the credential, it's not there, it's a private one. So hence technically you end up in getting an error, JIT exception. It's not able to fetch it because it's a private, right? So if I know the username and password correctly into my repo, then it's technically possible for me to do that, correct? So that's exactly what's going to happen. So when I make this to private, all that you have to do is you have to go back to this configure and make sure you have to put the right credential, which you need to add a credential here with the right username and password, correct? So you have to do with your correct GitHub username and password, do that and select that as an option right here in the drop down, and then you will able to access it. Is that clear? So it's very clearly cannot prompt because user interactive has been disabled, invalid username and password. That's fundamentally the real thing about this component. So I'll also show you from this screen. If you see from this screen, this has become private. So, from a public, you cannot access this, right? So I'll switch it back so you can see how do I switch it back. So I go to my github.com and then click on it. Come on. And go to the setting and come down to all the way to changes, and where you have the change visibility, make it public, and just how to do test leafing Jenkins and just type it here, understand. Now, first time it will ask you for the username password, one more verification. Now you can have access to this, right? It become a public. Is that making sense, guys? Yes? Did you all understand? So how do you use that in real projects? So make sure the credentials are important. Type the JIT path, set the credential branches. Then the build details. We have not really dig deeper. Tomorrow we'll spend a lot of time. Then run the build and watch the logs, which is a very, very important activity. We'll spend more time in debugging tomorrow. I'll give you a context to your learning. Okay. So with that said, we started reasonably well understanding CI/CD and what does it mean to you as a job role, what do you have to do, all that being taught to you. And also we understood from a Jenkins basic level, understanding how to set up Jenkins, what are the job available, all that we also looked about. Tomorrow, what we will spend is, I'll send a schedule to you. Tomorrow we'll see a Maven project. Tomorrow we'll see all the triggers in place. And also we'll see especially how does we look at the upstream and downstream project. For example, if the developer pushing a code, I want to run my unit test, or if I'm running a unit test, that is set of tests to be run before or after, how do we look at it? Also, if time permits, we'll also look at how to send an email of our reports of either test reports or the build notification reports back to a set of team members. We'll see that also tomorrow. That will give you a very, very solid get started platform for all of you on Jenkins. Okay, with that said, I'll stop the recording, but let's get some questions down today, right? So